I don't make enough money to be able to pay my bills. I don't make enough money to be able to pay my bills. And I was in foster care, so I'm supposed to get insurance from the state until I'm 26 years old. I just got an email this morning saying I no longer get it because guess what? Oh, well, you make too much. I make gross $2,000 a month. The cutoff is $1,700. First of all, gross. The government is taking money in taxes. I get loaded at that. And then I have to pay union dues. Like, I'm not taking that money, like, that you see, that number you see, I'm taking home, like, $200-300 less than what that number is. So, thanks, government, like, thanks you guys for voting for a president who's literally tearing our economy to shit. Like, this is literally, what the are we doing? Like, this is Trump, we're under Trump's tax right now. Like, do you guys not know that? This isn't Biden, this is Trump.
Donald Trump's voters are finally finding out that a liar is always a liar. And just because they tell you something you want to hear doesn't mean that they're telling the truth. In fact, it means that they are lying. And now Donald Trump's voters are finding out that the only person Donald Trump cares about is himself and his billionaire friends. Watch this.
So a couple days ago, my mom texted me asking if I could pick up her prescription because the pharmacy filled it before they were actually going to be in town. I said, sure, no problem. She told me it would be about $220. So like, okay, no worries. So I roll up to the pharmacy and the lady tells me it's going to be $778. And I was like, whoa, that's a huge difference from what my mom said. So can you just give me a couple minutes and I'm going to try to make sure that they're cool with it. So I call my mom, no answer. I call the house phone, no answer. I call my dad finally and he picks up. He said, well, I feel like that's amount I've paid before at the pharmacy for your mom. So I was like, okay. The woman said, yeah, and you're lucky you came today because the insurance company called yesterday and repriced it. So before it was going to be $1,000. I was like, oh, I'm saving money. Mom's going to be so happy. Home, text my parents, hey, this is what you guys owe me. My mom freaks out. She's like, what? It was only for one prescription for a 3-month supply. She's like, it's always $220. My dad starts freaking out because he was like, wait, what prescriptions did you pick up? And I said, it was only for one. He thought when I called him that it was these 2 drugs that she normally gets together. My mom was like, what the heck? That's crazy. Da-da. And I was like, well, what did you paid $220 before, right? She's like, yep, 3 months ago when I picked it up. I said, well, Mom, the only thing that has changed within 3 months is you know what? I still have the prescription. And I bought some of these lovely I did that stickers. So put that under the $778 and we'll be so excited to deliver that to my parents when they get back in town.
Hey, what was that?
If you make a product in America, you don't actually have to pay the tariff.
Oh, well, that was a big lie, and he knows it's a big lie, and I can prove it using an easy example, this 100% American-made Florida tangerine right here. See, Charlie is counting on you not thinking about the fact that, yeah, if something's 100% made in America, that exact item won't get a tariff on it, but the entire supply chain and how it's made and all the materials and all of the other parts of it are going to go up in price, right? Let's take a look at this Florida tangerine, right? It grows on a tree, you pick it off. Why would there be a tax on that? Why would there be a tariff on that? Well, what about the hoses for the irrigation to bring water to this tangerine? What about the tractor that's used as these are put into the back of a tractor and then driven off to the supply area so they can be packaged? What about the bags, the netting that these are put in, right? Is the netting made in America? You know, when you buy tangerines at the grocery store and they have that little plastic netting around it? 10%. It went up at least 10%, the price of just that netting alone. Where's the label made that goes on that netting, Charlie? And then let's go talk about the rest of the supply chain. The truck that you needed to go put this tangerine at the grocery store. Every single part of that truck, were they all made in America? Because now if anything goes wrong with that truck, that part's going to need to get replaced, which means maintenance costs are going to go up because that part goes up. So now they're going to go pass that on to the actual seller of the tangerine who's going to pass it on to the buyer. Once we get to the grocery store itself, are all the light bulbs made in America, Charlie? All those fluorescent light bulbs hanging over everybody's head. What about the shelving units? What about the refrigeration units that are used in the produce section, Charlie? What about all of the other different parts of that building itself of the grocery store? Is there anything that might need to be replaced in the near future that isn't made in America? Because all of them went up at least 10% because we put a 10% tariff on the entire world at the minimum, and at the maximum, it is percentages that we can't even imagine because they were imagined by ChatGPT as they were handed off to college students that you spent the last 4 years distracting from going into their classes while you stood out in a tent and yelled, no, it's the wokes and DEI that are causing all these problems, Charlie. And Charlie, I'm even talking about something very simple like a tangerine that's grown right here in Florida. I'm not even getting into anything more complicated like a t-shirt, Charlie, because I know for a fact that your t-shirt costs went up because Turning Point USA, the organization that you run that is funneling billionaire money to make sure that these kids keep voting to lower taxes somewhere along the line and destroy the world and maybe conquer Greenland or some shit. That organization that you run uses Gildan t-shirts. And Gildan t-shirts, the blanks that you then get screen printed, those are not made here in America. Where are your t-shirts made, Charlie? They're made in Latin America and Southeast Asia. So your t-shirt costs have gone up. Your costs are going up. You don't buy American. You don't use American labor. You just use American voters. And then you turn to them and tell them the money's on the dresser and it's never there.
Oh, what radicalized you? I'll f***ing tell you what radicalized me. When I was in 8th grade, my dad came home from a miserable, terrible, grueling day at work and said, hey, put your shoes on. We have to go to the school board meeting. Now, I'd never been to a school board meeting, didn't even really know what they were for, but what I did know is that my school had just implemented a policy that anyone could get a free lunch at school regardless of financial status. Rich kid gets a free lunch, poor kid gets a free lunch, paid for by the taxpayer. Now, 8th grade me thought that was a real good deal. I still think that, and I thought then that anybody with a rational brain cell would think the same. But we got to that school board meeting, and I watched as the same people that I saw at Sunday church every Sunday stood up in front of the board and talked about how this was a terrible thing and that they were all shelling out for all these people that didn't need a free lunch. And then I watched as my dad, the strongest, hardest working man I've ever known in my entire life, I mean, he could bend a horseshoe in half with his bare hands, my dad stood up and said, hey, I know exactly what it feels like to be the kid that needs the free lunch. I grew up on free lunch. And I also know exactly what it feels like to feel the stigma behind that in your classmates. He said, if you have a problem with paying for these free lunches, you can bill me. And then he looked at the school board and said, thank you for your time, and we left. Now, 8th grade me thought, well, maybe it's just a problem in my slack-jawed yokel of a hometown. But the more I've grown up, the more I've seen that this is not just a problem in 2,000 people towns. It's a problem nationwide, and that the same people that are having these problems are the same people that are at church every Sunday. That's what radicalized me.
We just found out that Biden's parole in place was struck down. This was my husband's only chance to adjust his status. Someone in the school pickup just stopped to give me a hug, bawling my eyes out after I dropped off my kids. The fact that it was our own family and our friends who voted for the people who did this, saying they'll never get rid of DACA, they'll give citizenship to spouses. Stop making excuses for these people. You believe that DACA should get citizenship. If you believe that spouses should get citizenship, don't vote for the people who are bringing these lawsuits in. What do I tell my kids? And I don't really know where we go from here. Devastating. Absolutely devastating for us. Every Republican who voted saying family values, it's not about family values. This is not family values.
What was that? That boomers' entire retirement just went down the drain because of the crash yesterday? Well, you know, maybe now they need to handle their finances a little bit better. Maybe they need to stop buying those $5 lattes that they treat themselves to once in a while, because that's the issue, right? It's a mismanagement of finances. It's not external forces that sometimes you can't control. Not the fact that it's pure market manipulation at play. It has nothing to do with that, right? It's all personal accountability and all your own choices that you made. So I guess you lost all of your retirement savings, so no more coffees for you.
We really should have listened to the Nobel Prize winning economists, okay? Because y'all voted for money, you're not going to save any. You want those low gas prices, you're not going to get it because you voted for tariffs, the 10 to 20% increase, okay? And that's going to come out of consumers' pockets. You think the companies are going to happily pay that and not jack up their prices? That's crazy. So you want to talk about gas prices. You're like, oh, well, the U.S., we'll just drill. It's going to cost money to build infrastructure, to build pipelines, and to pay people wages, okay? And 76% of crude oil is imported to the U.S. And U.S. petrol refineries use that crude oil to make gasoline. So 76% of our gasoline comes from imported crude oil. You're going to see a 10 to 20% increase in gas prices if that's what you're worried about. You're not able to connect the dots. I get why he captured 65% of the uneducated population. I really do. Y'all really think you know more than Nobel Prize economists? Nobel Prize winning economists? But I'm just here for that show, okay? This is just part of the Great Awakening process, okay? You can't learn wisdom until you're able to call yourself out on your own fucking ignorance and then course correct.
It should come as no surprise that Trump would like to continue to be president beyond his current term. He kept saying on the campaign trail that there might not be a need for future elections. He continued to allude to that over and over. Additionally, he has said in the past that he would like to seek a third term if possible, and he once again confirmed that today. Now, the likely path for that to occur would mean that J.D. Vance would run for president with Trump as his vice president, and Vance could get elected and then resign, effectively making Trump president again. This idea should terrify you, whether you're in the U.S. or whether you're outside of the U.S. What many Americans fail to realize is how much this president is affecting the entire world. The fact that Canada is done with us should be enough. He is by far the worst president in American history.
I just need you to know that if you're an American citizen and you are in any capacity defending the ICE thugs on the street, snatching people and putting them in unmarked cars and taking them to undisclosed locations, and you're defending that in our so-called free country with a so-called First Amendment, you're a fascist. Like, just understand that. Don't try to dress it up. Don't try to dress it up. Don't try to call yourself something you're not. Don't try to pretend that you care about freedom or our Constitution or the Bill of Rights. Just admit you're a brown shirt. There are actually clowns that are on the internet right now trying to defend the plainclothes police officers or ICE officers snatching that Rumesa woman off the street and being like, well, they were wearing a lanyard. Like, get the okay. I've been stopped by plainclothes police officers twice since I've lived in New York. And both times were absolutely terrifying because I didn't know who they were. And yes, it is reasonable to believe that when you see a police officer, they should have the uniform on. So when I got stopped by two police officers that were like, hey, come here, show me your bag, because they thought that I was terrified because I didn't know who they were. And I didn't even know if their badges were real. Because when I said, who are you? They were like, we're police officers. I'm like, how come you're not wearing uniforms? They're like, here's our badge. How do I know if it's real? No. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is so unacceptable. And it's not just Rumesa. There's been a third person, you guys. A third person, somebody in Alabama who they also just snatched off the street. And by the way, the terror organizations that are doing this are Canary Mission and Betar, which is like a Zionist hate group that is so hateful. Get ready for this. They are so hateful and they're such psychopaths doing doxing and terror campaigns to people that the ADL actually put them on their list. You know it's bad when the trash bag ADL, which is fully in service of just protecting Zionism, is like, you guys are going too far.
We're out here arguing about renaming the Gulf of Mexico, buying Greenland, annexing Canada. Give us universal health care. Give us universal health care. Shut the up about everything else until we have universal health care. Shut the up about every single other thing until people are not burning through their life savings to pay for emergency surgeries that would be free in almost any other country.
Hello. I was a federal worker who had 1 month left of her probationary period, and today I was told that I will be terminated at some point this week. I'm utterly devastated. I'm confused because my recent performance evaluation was exceptional and I got upwards of $1,500 as a bonus because my performance was so good. And this was my dream job. And it's just being taken away by an administration who doesn't care about science. It doesn't care about people who might be homeless with their dog now. They don't care about our species that we're trying to conserve. That's exactly what my job was doing. It was just to assess habitat conservation for species for a 55-year habitat conservation plan. We should all be so mad right now. We should all be crying like this because I'm just devastated.
This is my second attempt to make this video because I had to calm down. I'm so angry. So I just heard that the Trump administration has decided to roll back all of the student loan forgiveness programs. All of them. Their entire administration is going to be about taking things away from the American people. That's it. That's all. We are about to lose so much. So you motherfuckers out there that voted for Trump, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your whining and complaining and your bitching because you voted for this. You f***ed us all. And while you may enjoy that for now, when it swings around and shoves it up your ass, I hope it hurts like hell. I really do. But don't bring that shit to me, honey. I'm not going to want to fucking hear it. Kiss my ass.
Everyone with their head not lodged up their ass understands that Donald Trump has no intentions of leaving at the end of these 4 years. If we are unlucky enough that he is still alive and kicking in the Oval Office, he's not just going to walk out because he knows after the White House, what will be waiting for him is eventual prison. So he is not leaving. But if he wanted to do the loophole of having J.D. Vance be at the top of the ticket, then the Democrats could simply do the same exact thing, put someone at the top of the ticket with Obama behind, knowing that whoever wins will step down and let Obama be next. Essentially just setting up Obama versus Trump. And I'll put my money on a 67-year-old Obama any day over an 82-year-old Donald Trump.
If you find yourself confused why the twice impeached 34-time felon currently squatting in the White House would impose tariffs that everyone knows for a fact and without a doubt will tank the economy, drive up prices, intensify inflation, increase unemployment, and amplify this nation's debt and deficit, keep in mind that when the stock market plummets, corporations benefit. The stock market plummets when stockholders panic and sell their shares because the prices of those shares are dropping. The more stockholders sell their shares, the more the prices of those shares drop, and the cheaper it becomes for the corporations that issued those shares to buy them back at obscene discounts, specifically for the purpose of turning around and reissuing them again at their full valuation when the stock market eventually recovers. Make no mistake about it, what this second-rate reality TV game show host and his accomplices are committing is the sort of deliberate and coordinated market manipulation that the wealthiest have always committed, designed to facilitate the consolidation of this country's wealth, which is and always has been generated by the workers and the laborers who are and always have been systematically exploited by the executives who steal and hoard that wealth among those who already have the most.
If you're a Trump supporter, just know that there are 4 things that everybody who's not a Trump supporter thinks about you. And so far, you've done nothing to disprove these things. 1, you're uneducated. And I don't mean uneducated in the sense that you didn't go to school and learn to read or do basic arithmetic. I mean, you're uneducated as far as what's going on in the world. You got goggles on, only paying attention to what you want to pay attention to. Dose, you lack empathy. You don't care what happens to somebody else as long as it doesn't happen to you. Imagine for a moment the government started saying, hey, your marriage is illegal. How would you feel about that? How would you feel about that? But you don't care that it's happening to gay people as long as it doesn't happen to you. 3, you lack independent thinking skills, meaning you are incapable of forming your own thoughts, opinions, or viewpoints on things. You need pundit talking points from Fox News or whatever, that other OAN. You need those people to tell you what to believe. You don't have the ability to look into those claims and maybe think something else. It's confirmation bias. You live in this bubble and you refuse to step outside of it. 4, and I think this is the most important one. I think this is the one you really need to work on if you have the ability, and that is critical thinking. Critical thinking is the ability to look at a situation and say to yourself, you know what, that's kind of up. That's not right, and you can't do that.
I'm just curious what all y'all really
thought? Like, y'all really thought that you were going to vote for the party that thinks minimum wage is already too high. They already don't believe in minimum wage. Okay, not only that, but you voted for the party who overwhelmingly is against immigration, but also is the first demographic, farmers, all these things, that have to rely on those people for their labor, right? And so up until this point, they either had to come here legally or they were going to abuse them illegally. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to have all these construction companies, okay, building concentration camps. They're going to put these people in concentration camps. They're going to use them like slaves. Because y'all were dumb enough to let it. Y'all were dumb enough to let this happen right in front of your face. Y'all literally were told tariffs, and now you guys are going to be paying for those tariffs. I can't even, not only that, but Elon Musk is against unions. He's against just workers. He wants everything to be robotic. Robots don't pay taxes. So when none of you have a job, none of you can compete. None of you have anything to offer, and all of you have your kids in a public education system that's getting gutted. They're going to get to go fight in the military. Look at page 103 for Project 2025. They're going to be the ones going to fight in the military. But the private schools, the ones that your taxes are going to pay for rich people's kids to go to for free now, they don't got to take assessments to go fight in the military. Just your poor ass kids do. Yeah. Y'all let a billionaire, steal your country from you boot-licking assholes.